Okie dokie here. We're going to do a 2-camera shoot. I don't know how well it's going to work out. We have the camera above that's actually recording me. Now, there's a fan running in the background. There's nothing I can do about that noise. I'm sorry. I got to suck out the poison fumes, and my cigarette smoke. So, the camera that's mounted above me actually has a didymium filter on it. So that's the camera that's actually going to show more of what I'm actually doing. That's the best angle I can get on this camera. This camera will probably go in and out of focus. I'm going to try to edit those out. With my luck, it'll go in and out of focus when I need it. Whatever. I was originally going to do a real short video on this, just like a real quickie. And then it dawned on me that it'd probably be a better idea to show a little bit more of the process, what goes into these before I even begin to make one. And what am I making? Well, this is another video in the Nightlight series. So, how do I start? Well, the first thing I do is I prep my blow tubes, because this is going to require some blow tubes. Actually, the first thing I do normally is I pull points. Now, I swipe this point off of George's bench. It's not really a point, it's just a section, but this is a good sized section, and I have, this is a pretty decent sized section, so this is what I'm going to use. I have other sections, but this is a clear section, and then this is another section. Now, this is profile tubing, and we're going to do both of these. Actually, I might do 3, depending on whether or not the battery in my second camera lasts. My Canon camera, which I'm recording this video on also, it's getting old and janky, and it's been dropped, and it goes in and out of focus, and what have you. So the first thing we're going to do is I already turned my oxygen on, I already turned my propane on. Now, ironically enough, I ran out of liquid oxygen, and I'm using my tanks. So I hope I have enough gas to do this without having to turn my concentrators on, which I'm going to have to do anyway, but I don't want to do it right now because they're noisy. All right, so let's light our torch here. I did switch up my system here a little bit because of George. And I'm using larger diameter blow tubes. He turned me on to these bigger blow tubes. LED on the inside. Now, I don't know if it shows up on camera, it doesn't matter. I have a little rack over here I built to set my hot tubes. Now, all I'm doing here is, and this drives, is I'm flaring out these blow tubes just a little bit, just a tiny bit, just putting a little flare on them, and I'm polishing the end that goes either in my mouth or into the blow tube assembly, which I'm going to be using very shortly. These start as 5-foot long pieces, and I have to trim them down to a little bit more easier to hold, easier to control length. Now, the one funny thing here is I got to make sure that I don't put the hot end in my mouth, but we got a minute or two before I need these, so hopefully they'll cool off, and if not, you get to see me burn my lips on TV. Okay, now, started a little fire there. Next step. I think I'm going to start with this one. Now, you can see this is a little off, and that's fine. It's not a huge deal. So I'm going to preheat this tube a little because it might pop. It's been, yeah, there it goes. It popped. Just only cracked a tiny little bit, so we're okay. We melted that crack right back in. And I got this at a pretty steep angle here. This is another rod. This is a Looks like an 8mm rod. That one's a little long. We're gonna grab a little shorter one here. And I'm gonna preheat this a little bit in the flame. My candles are a little long. I gotta shorten those up. There we go. Now I have this at a pretty steep angle, so the glass will flow into a point, and then I'm going to attach the rod to the end. Take it out of the flame, and twirly, 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 spinny, spinny, spinny. Check it for concentricity. Make sure it's straight on the punt. If you're not straight on the punt, then pretty much everything you do after that's going to be crooked. In this particular case, what I'm making right now, that's not a massively large issue, but it is kind of a big deal. You want that to be as straight as possible. Now, what I've done here is I've created a sealed end, and go that way. I'm going to rip a hole in the end of this. I want this extra glass. There we go. There's our hole, which sealed up right away. That's okay. I'm just going to tear our hole. There we go. Got our hole torn. There's too much water in my... fudge. There's too much water in my bowl there. Now, I'm going to flare this end out pretty large, because we're going to be drawing on the inside of this, fuming on the inside of it. If this particular section wasn't so short, and it's short, I want it to be short, I wouldn't have had such a tight end there. In doing these, I want as much glass as I can get and still be able to reliably work on the inside. That's actually a really cool shape for a jar. Interesting. So I just have my graphite rod in there to act as a stabilizer to open this up. I'm going to give it a real quick high-speed spin here. Centrifugal force is going to throw the end open. Now, here's kind of the bummer part. You're not going to, I have to switch, you're going to probably end up switching camera angles here. Okay, so we got a pretty decent flare going on here. I'm going to preheat this glass pretty good. And I'm going to shut off my outer flame. I'm going to just lightly crack. I'm going to get what's called a fuming flame. Get this glass nice and hot on the inside here. Oh, really? A little piece of silver fell off, but there's already silver all over this rod, so it's not really a huge deal. I want to put just enough fume in this thing so that you can just barely see it. It'll never show up on camera, no matter how hard I try to show. No matter how hard I try to show it, it's not ever really going to show up on camera. Again. Alright, so that's about all the silver I'm going to put in there for the time being. Now I have to readjust my flame, which is usually just pop the back open a little bit. It brings the cone in and draws the it draws the cones in, makes it a more oxygen rich flame. Now on this punt rod here, I have a little teeny tiny piece of gold. I'm going to put that in. And the gold I actually fume a little bit heavier. Okay. Now I got to be careful because the gold also likes to fly off the rod, and then I'm looking around on the bench like I'm Hunter Biden looking for crack in the carpet. So I turn up the flame. I'm getting the inside of this pretty hot, and what I'm doing is I'm baking in the fume itself. Getting as hot as I can without, I'm getting it as hot as I can, as oxygen rich as I can, without melting it. Because this thing will get melty and floppy really quick. As a matter of fact, it already started to. Okay, so we're going to turn that down. I'm going to turn my flame down a little more. There we go, nice gentle flame. Now I've got some 3 mil rod here, and I'm actually going to draw on the inside of this. I'm going to get the 3 mil hot first. It's nice. I swiped this piece of 50 mil off of George's bench. George isn't here. He's not going to miss it. And I'm just drawing some lines on the inside here. Oops. You can see it's already starting to droop a little, so I have to work a little faster. The end where my rod's attached is actually a little short, or it's a little thin. I don't have a lot built up there, just because this was kind of a small piece, but I wanted to use a small piece. Off to my right, I don't know if it's on cameras, I have a stack of these 3 mil rods. I really should probably be using some different diameter, and I'm going to in a minute. I've only got 3, 7, and 8. Right now, because that's just all I got. Okay, now I'm gonna try to get that to straighten out a little bit more. Centrifugal force is your friend, gravity is your friend, gravity is your enemy. I'm going to create a little bit different fuming flame. What I found, fuming is more of an art than it is a science. I'm sure that a lot of glass blowers will disagree with me, but that's just my experience. Now I'm going to get this really hot. This is a piece of 7 mil, I think. I should draw this down into a smaller piece, but I'm not going to, because this is kind of a demo. So it'll draw itself down in the tube, kind of, maybe, I hope. I may have to draw it out. I don't want to knock this off kilter too much by putting too much heat into it. Yeah, I'm going to have to draw it down a little. Okay, no big deal. Now, right off camera here, I have my kiln, which actually it might still be on camera. I'm going to throw this in the kiln real quick. And I'm going to heat this rod up and grab another one here. These are all scraps that I have laying around. And I'm going to kind of pull out a section of this so it's just a little bit thinner. Actually, what it's going to be is varying in its diameter, which is kind of cool. I should probably be using a thicker rod for this, but this will work. Yeah, there we go. So it's a little bit, it's not quite 3 mil, it's not quite 5 mil, it's not, you know, it is what it is, but it's thinner than it was. I'm always amazed at how long glass stays pliable after you take it out of the heat, because it's like, now my kiln, I'm going to knock some of the kiln dust off. It's got a little kiln dust on it. We don't want that in our piece. Turn that outer flame off again. I'm going to draw in here. In this particular case, all I'm doing is putting straight lines in. And that's fine. Sometimes I'll put straight lines, sometimes I will put wiggly lines, sometimes I'll make, you know, it just all depends on what suits my fancy right now. Alright, now I'm going to throw some more gold in here. Again, my fuming flames are just a little bit different every time, which is really not ideal, but I have yet to figure out how to get it exactly the same every time. So I'm getting pretty close. The atmosphere in which the gold is fumed and the atmosphere in which the piece is melted in absolutely plays a part in what colors you get out of it. Let's try to straighten this up a little bit. There was a bit of a joke between myself and George in that my points are almost always crooked in some way, shape, or form. And that's why my lenses for this have a tendency to turn out a little weird. And it's because I'm not, there we go, because my stuff's not straight. Is what it is. Oh, that ain't good. But that's okay. We're not making a pipe. We're not making a vessel. That monster crack in there actually will help this project a little bit. It's just going to take a minute for it to get hot enough. And I'll take that time to light a cigarette. Word of warning, the Marver plate gets as hot as the torch. So when you go to light a cigarette, make sure you don't bump your chin on the Marver plate. Okay, now I'm going to pull my rest in here. My astute viewers will notice that I'm not using the Marvering plates or the steady rests that I made. The reason is I'm using them for a different project right now. That's why I'm not using those right this second. If you haven't seen my making a steady rest videos, please check those out and be sure to like and subscribe. You're also going to want to check out the rest of this video series, which is basically making night lights. I sure hope I have enough oxygen to make 3 of these. My other series of videos is on my oxygen concentrator setup, and that's another interesting series of videos that you can watch. Where I go through the entire process of creating my home brewed oxygen concentrator system, which I'm working with right now. Because like I said, I'm out of liquid. I'm not going to get liquid. I'm not going to get another liquid tank until George decides to, or yeah, I'm not going to, until he comes back and starts working on a regular basis. He had a family emergency, so therefore he's taking a little bit of a break. I'm going to Marver this closed. It's not working fast enough for me. Alright, now, is this one hot? No, okay. And we're just going to stick our blow tube on the end here. Get it as straight as we can. It's kind of important. And I'm just going to let it, centrifugal force, even out the wall thickness. And I'm going to give it a little puff. Alright, now I'm going to let this kind of cool for a second, and then I'm going to attach my blow tube. Now, I hope I have enough gas, I hope I have enough battery power, and my camera's here to do a full 2-camera shoot for the whole time. My money's on no, but it is what it is. Now I'm going to start way out here. Get this warm. Alright, now. This is a great thing here. I don't have to move my steady rest anymore. I can just pull the torch out a little bit. Now this does expose my lap to hot glass, but now the upside from me using a blow tube is I can't talk with it in my mouth too much. Pull that off. That's important. Clean that off there. Now I'm going to attach a much larger punt rod to this in a second. This is like a 12 mil rod, might even be bigger. This is going to play, it's going to be a lens also. Get that booger nice and hot. I probably could have started with the 12. I just out of force of habit, I started with the with the 8 or 7 or whatever the hell size that is. Now I'm letting this collapse in on itself. I'm actually not blowing into this tube. I'm going to give it a little tug, lengthen it down a little bit, get that glass flowing to the end where I want it to go. And a kink in my blow tube. Getting this thing nice and hot at the end here, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a hole. Go back and heat the end. Give it a suck. And what that did is it pulled in all the glass and created like a flat spot in the middle. Which I wanted. I had to be careful sucking in on this because you will pop a hole in it. You will suck glass down into your lungs. It's not cool. There we go. Give another one there. Move a little bit further this way. Now I'm letting gravity do the vast majority of this work here. Ooh, I'm getting real crazy. So we're sealed there, which is not good, but it's okay. We're going to need this in a second. I'm going to set that aside. Now, you can see it's kind of cattywampy there. That's not great, but it's not bad either. It's not the end of the world. Now I'm going to work on this end here. And I'm going to smooth it out. I want to try to make that bubble that I just accidentally created a little bit less angry on the inside. Now, bubbles are not good. Bubbles aren't bad, but bubbles aren't the end of the universe either. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the project. So I grabbed another one of my large punt rods, large 12, 13 millimeter rods. This thing's pretty big. It's got scum on it. Right, now I'm going to take this out of the flame for just a second. Let it cool down. There's scum on the end of this that I have to get rid of because that will cause a problem. Set that right. Put that right there on my graphite for a second. Get this thing hot. Just drag this scum off of here. I should have done that ahead of time. I got a nice flat spot that I now have to get rid of. Yeah, that was kind of an oopsie on my part. Should have thought about that ahead of time. Also shouldn't have set that rod on the cold table. Nice wet, hot joint there because this rod is going to be integral to the rest of this project. Now I'm heating up this ball, the blob that's in the middle here that I'm heating up right now, I'm going to get really hot. If I get it really nice and hot, what will happen is the bubble which I intentionally created will now, through centrifugal force, through internal pressure, it will eventually turn into a sphere. Spherical bubbles are what I'm shooting for, and spherical bubbles, or at least bubbles with no sharpness to them, are desirable, and that's what I'm going for. So I'm just going to keep heating this thing up until the bubble on the my right side will start to move and become softer on the inside. If I don't do that, what will happen is it'll create an incredible amount of stress in the glass, and that's not desirable. Okay, so I'm going to take it out. It's done what I wanted it to do. I'm actually going to turn it up a little bit. So the glass is flowing down, but the air is flowing up. Air always wants to go to the highest position. Yes, that's smoothed out very nicely. Now what am I going to do? I don't know, that's a great question. This is a little small, but it's a nightlight. So, in front of me, I have a window frame that gives me a really nice way to see what's going on. I think I'm going to add some more glass to this. Now I'm actually going to take this off. It's a shame the silver is developed into a beautiful blue, but it's going to go away. Yeah, it went away that fast. Okay. I'm going to get the rod that's in my right hand, I'm going to get it super duper hot, liquidy hot, while I keep the flame on the heat, or while I keep it in the heat, and I'm going to add some glass to the outside of this. Now, I'm going to try an experiment because I can, because all of this is experimentation, and I'm not going to put a whole ton of glass on this. I don't want to trap too many air bubbles. I could encase this, but I'm finding that I'm getting a lot of bubbles when I do that. So I think I'm going to try this method here, which is just, I'm going to add some glass, I'm going to melt it in, I'm going to add some glass, I'm going to melt it in, I'm going to add some glass, I'm going to melt it in, and then I'm going to pull it out and get a little bit larger shape. Awesome. Okay. That actually is exactly what I wanted to do. The vast majority of glass blowing is melting in the glass. Yeah, I'm already running out of oxygen. Get that nice and hot, get that flowed in. Actually going to tilt the rod a little bit to the left to get the glass to flow a little bit more evenly. I haven't blown glass in about a week now, and my hands getting tired already. It's crazy how quickly we start to atrophy. Alright. Get lazy there for a second and put it in the rest. I spent a lot of, well, I put some effort and thought into creating this ribbon in the middle. So I want to retain that ribbon. kind of letting it cool off a little so I can just kind of take a look at it. Yeah, it's a shame that there was a beautiful blue streak in this and it went scummy because I overheated it again. I didn't overheat it, I just had to heat it up to get it to do what I wanted it to do. I gotta think for a second here. Let's grab this. I grabbed a smaller diameter rod. I want to use that instead of that big rod to add glass to this. I'll try not to get too many bubbles in it by boiling the glass. Now there's a lot of different ways you can do this. You can case it with another piece of tubing, which is probably the way I should have done this. You could roll it in frit. You can do what I'm doing, which is just taking and smearing it on the outside. Should be turning or twisting the glass while I do it, because like I said, I'm getting some boiling. Clear doesn't like to boil. You know, amber purple likes to boil. This stuff does not like to boil. Doesn't want to be boiled, let me put it that way. Now keep in mind that there is no actual borosilicate color in here. This is all the color that you see in these pieces is created by gold and silver that I fume into the piece. Nice air bubble. Now I've been reading up and kind of discussing this fuming color issue with my buddy George, and he's fairly convinced that part of the reason we're not getting these really vibrant colors is because of the actual physical makeup of the Boro. I'm using Boro Artistic because it's cheaper. Apparently Chat Durand is a much better material for this. I don't know. I'm not a fume artist. I'm just a guy that's playing around with a new concept in my own head. Fuming is not new. Fuming's been around for as long as color changing glass. I'm getting a good bit of bubbles in this. I knew doing it that way I was going to get some bubbles. Well, there you go. I am sort of shooting for a somewhat standardized shape on these. Standardized shape and size, basically, but they're all going to be obviously different. This is more of a kind of get it close to the shape that I want. And the shape that I want is kind of like eggsy. Oh, Eggsy. Or conical. I think I'm going to do this one conical. And I kind of want it straight. So when I go to put it in the base, I don't have to fiddle too much. So basically any way that I put it in the base, I don't have to change the viewing, like the better. Sometimes they look, you know, well, there's it's so unique. These things are so unique that you have to spin them in the base before you can make a decision on what way looks best. Okay, so I'm going to pull this out for a second. Grab a little off camera, but that's okay. That's a nice shape. Alright. Yeah, it's pretty close. It's pretty close to the way I want it. I'm going to heat this end up here. And I'm going to kind of hold it this way. And I'm going to melt off the end here. But I'm going to leave a good bit of glass sticking off of it because I want the glass that's in the on the right side punt to melt into the base and give me a little bit wider base. I have multiple different styles of base, which you've seen in my other videos, and each piece is matched to a base that I feel makes it look the best. I'm gonna melt this sucker in here, and it absolutely looks like I'm gonna have to turn my oxygen compressors on. Like we got one piece made, and then that was the end of my oxygen. My oxygen concentrator / compressor setup is currently broken. I popped the seals. I show in one of my other videos, I popped the seals in my compressor. So I can only produce 500 psi of oxygen, and quite frankly, I've already used 300. So, oopsie. Now, centrifugal force and gravity are going to pull this into a sphere because spheres are the natural form of liquid. GoPro overheated. The GoPro is really way too close. Well, that didn't take long for everything to go sideways. Way down. Now that the piece is cooled a little bit, oh, I went and cleaned my bench the other day, and I created a bit of a problem here. Never clean up, kids. No, it's too small. I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to. I'm going to tilt this down again. Now, I got the one in my left hand spinning pretty good. This is one that has a flare on it. I got to get it nice and hot. Now I'm creating a little void in the end of the tube here. I'm going to give it a little tug, and I'm just going to keep spinning it, and hopefully centrifugal force and gravity will make this come into a nice little cone. I got to come off camera here for a second. Give it a little puff. Yep, okay. Just a little puff. I'm going to cut this end off. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm creating the tip of the lens. Now, you kind of want it to be relatively straight, because if it's not, then it looks weird. Just melting up the very tip itself, or just heating up the very tip itself. It's kind of hard to see on this camera. Hopefully it's showing up on this one. Yeah, I immediately took that oxygen out of that tank. Alright. It just means I have to turn my condensers on, that's all. Tighten it up just a little bit more. Nice. Alright, so that's pretty much exactly what I wanted to do here. I'm going to turn these off, turn that off, because I can't waste oxygen now. And I'm just going to keep spinning this. This one's relatively straight. Some of the ones I've made are not straight, so when I mount them in the piece, I have to very carefully pay attention to where they are. Now, it's not going to show up on these cameras or later. I should probably put my safety glasses back on, because there's always a possibility as glass cools that it decides that it's unhappy and it's going to pop. You should always be wearing safety glasses when you're futzing with glass, period. There's no room for debate on that one. Alright, so we're almost cooled down here. You can't see it on camera, but it is still glowing red. If I was to turn the lights off in here, you could probably still see it. It's glowing. Trust me. As a matter of fact, just got it. Okay, so that's how hot it is. And that little piece of paper I just stuck on there immediately vaporized. That's why I had to stick it in there twice. Okay, now we're going to throw this one in the kiln, and then we'll get back to this whole project.